Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. What drives a married woman to betray her vows? This question haunted me as I reviewed the private investigator's findings and examined the evidence. After 15 years of a happy marriage, what could make her seek intimacy outside of our relationship? The images and details in the report only added to my confusion. Was it an error of judgment, a moment of weakness, or perhaps something deeper such as a psychological breakdown? The report indicates that their meetings were purely physical, which raised additional questions about the nature of their relationship. Did she still love her husband, or had she just lost her way? No woman in her right mind would risk everything she has for fleeting moments of infidelity. Tears streamed down my face as I tried to make sense of it all. The private investigator left me alone in the office so that I could digest the report and deal with the emotions that overwhelmed me. After studying the photos, I was almost more concerned about the intensity with which she was having an affair with her lover. I recognized him as David Matthews, a colleague from the real estate office where she worked as an agent. They met a couple of times a week at the motel on Highway 74, and sometimes in our house in the guest bedroom. The private investigator had photos of them together, so there were no privacy issues in divorce court. When the private investigator first saw them enter our house, he installed many cameras and audio recorders in different rooms. Now I had to decide when and how to confront her. I have come to the conclusion that divorce is inevitable. I couldn't bring myself to forgive her for betraying me and expecting me to just brush it off. Despite the fact that I consider myself a Christian, the footage of her infidelity showed such disrespect and lack of regard for me that I could not find a reason to ask her for forgiveness. My name is Michael Sullivan. I am a 43-year-old supermarket manager for Harris Teeter. My work often takes me away from my family for long hours, so I thought this could be the reason for my wife Rebecca's infidelity, but I couldn't justify her cheating on me with that. We first met in college at UNC Charlotte, and since our first date, no other woman has captured my heart. Throughout our marriage, I cherished her and relied on her completely. She works as an agent for Keller Williams real estate firm and often spends long hours outside the office, just like David. It seems that such a joint schedule gives them the opportunity to pursue their additional hobbies. David, who is about our age, is married to Sarah Matthews, a delightful and kind woman. They also have 2 children about the same age as ours. I first met them at various family gatherings organized by the real estate company and always found them to be a pleasant family. I thought the divorce could be settled amicably, citing irreconcilable differences, especially if she was willing to cooperate. Since we both received the same income, I did not see the need for alimony. In addition, if our 14-year-old son Connor lives with me and her 12-year-old daughter Emma stays with her mother, then alimony will not be needed. It seems fair to me to sell the house and divide all the property equally 50-50ths. If she refuses to comply, I will resort to the threat of divorce on the grounds of adultery and publish the private investigator's report with incriminating photographs, audio, and video recordings. The thought of David's family had crossed my mind, but I didn't have a plan yet on how to solve this problem. Perhaps at the right moment I will share the evidence I have with his wife and let her make her own decision. I knew it would be just as devastating for her as it was for me, but she needs to know what kind of man she married. I wanted to take revenge for what he had done to my family. There was a sudden knock on the door and the private detective entered. "How are you, Mr. Sullivan? Do you have any questions about the material?" "No, I don't think so. Everything is here as I expected," I replied sadly. "Would you like to watch videos or listen to audio recordings? This may give you a better understanding of events," he suggested. "No thanks. I can no longer accept what the photos have already shown me," I said. The realization that she had completely given herself to another man was too unbearable, so I got up and prepared to leave. When I left, I paid him by writing a check for the remaining amount. I collected his report with photos, audio, and videotapes and left his office. After lunch, I took the day off, giving the assistant manager the opportunity to take command of the store. It was a good opportunity for him to gain experience, and I made sure to be in touch via my mobile phone if he needed me. I decided to stop in Freedom Park near our house to reflect on the events that led me to reveal the infidelity of my future ex-wife. The thought of returning to the house we once called home no longer pleased me because it no longer felt like home. It was just a simple house where we ate and rested together. I decided to do everything possible to save our family for the sake of our children who needed stability. Rebecca, my wife, is a wonderful woman who keeps fit through exercise and work. Although she may not be as slim as she used to be after having children, I noticed that she has lost a little weight lately and looks tired, which I assumed was due to a new diet. Despite this, she still seems beautiful to me. Our intimate life was regular until a few weeks ago, though it lacked the excitement it once had. I thought about suggesting we try something new to brighten our relationship, but hesitated because of her possible reaction. Looking back, I realized our intimacy had weakened, and she only showed interest on certain days, which I now understood were the days when she wasn't with David. When I came across a bank statement from her personal account showing expenses at a hotel on Independence Boulevard, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. I decided to conduct further investigation, as a result of which I hired a private investigator whose report confirmed my fears. Despite thinking about confronting her immediately, I decided to collect more evidence of her possible infidelity. The investigation was expensive, and we had to spend some of our retirement savings. I reasoned that if my suspicions were correct, I wouldn't have to worry about our future together. Her unwavering love for me did not weaken even as she continued her affair. I couldn't help but wonder at her ability to maintain such a facade and pretend that nothing was happening. It was clear to me that she was putting on a good show. Her actions with David indicated that she no longer felt the same love and respect for me as she did for her partner. It was a disturbing realization that I knew I couldn't ignore. Sitting in Freedom Park where we spent countless unforgettable moments with our children, emotions overwhelmed me and tears welled up in my eyes again as I reflected on the past 15 years of what I thought was a perfect marriage. Memories of all the happy moments flashed through my mind. Despite a few minor problems, how could she leave so easily? Tears were streaming down my face as I sat in the park, leaning back on the bench and trying to make sense of it all. I finally managed to regain my composure, but then another thought came to my mind. If she's really struggling with mental illness, will I be able to support her? In our wedding vows, there was a promise to be by each other's side in sickness and in health, and mental illness is a form of illness. Will I be able to find the strength to stay married and fulfill this vow if she ends her affair? The marriage vow also contained a promise to forsake all others, which she clearly broke. When I realized that I could no longer trust her, even if her actions were influenced by illness, I knew I could not continue to live with her. How could I manage her and combine my work responsibilities? Divorce seemed to be the only acceptable option. I started thinking about how to get through the breakup with minimal damage to our children and not get into an acute confrontation with her. But first I had to find and consult with a divorce lawyer. I used my mobile phone to contact our lawyer and ask for advice. Jerry seemed shocked by my request, but he recommended Ron Jenkins to me and gave me his contact details. Before ending the conversation, I asked him to revise my will, excluding Rebecca from it and specifying our children as the main beneficiaries. After that, I immediately set up an appointment with a divorce lawyer for the next morning. Feeling depressed, I decided to return home and try to maintain a sense of normality for a while longer. When I returned home, Rebecca was not there yet, but our children were at home and diligently doing their homework. I felt proud watching them, seeing how they pushed themselves to complete tasks as soon as they came home from school. "Dad?" Emma asked curiously. "Why are you home so early?" I explained that I had some things to do, and instead of going back to the store, I decided to come home to see how they were doing. Emma jokingly replied, grinning mischievously, "Oh, Dad, you know how hard-working we are." I hugged her tightly, grateful for what a wonderful daughter she was. even though I knew I would miss her when I separated from her mother. Of course, I teased. Has your mom returned home yet? Emma shook her head, making it clear that her mom hadn't returned yet. She called to say that she would be a little late because she had an appointment. She mentioned that she would bring Chinese food from Golden Dragon for dinner, which seemed like a good option to me. I asked if Connor was in his room, and she confirmed that he was. I wondered if Rebecca was meeting David at the motel this afternoon, but I stopped following her activities since I had all the information I needed. I went upstairs and knocked on Connor's door. When he opened it, I hugged him and asked how things were going at school. He replied that everything was going well without any complaints. We continued the conversation for a few more minutes before I went downstairs to make myself a scotch on the rocks, my favorite drink, while waiting for Rebecca. When she arrived home, I greeted her with a kiss on the cheek as usual. She seemed unusually affectionate and hugged me tightly. "How was your day, honey?" she asked. "It was fine. I came home early to spend some time with the kids." "How was your day?" "Busy as usual, but productive. I showed 3 houses today and have 2 more appointments scheduled for tomorrow." We sat down for dinner with the children, and I observed her behavior closely. She seemed normal, chatting with Emma and Connor about their school day, helping Emma with her math homework after dinner. There was no sign that she was leading a double life, which made her betrayal even more bewildering. That night, as we prepared for bed, she seemed particularly attentive and affectionate. She asked about my day in detail and shared stories about her clients. When we got into bed, she snuggled close to me. "Michael, I want you to know how much I love you," she said softly. Her words hurt me deeply. How could she say such things while carrying on an affair? I managed to respond appropriately, but inside I was dying. The next morning followed the same pattern. She was loving, attentive, and seemed genuinely happy. It was as if the woman I was seeing in the private investigator's photos was a completely different person. The contradiction was driving me insane. The night before I planned to confront her, Rebecca was particularly passionate. She initiated intimacy, something that had become rare in recent months. As we lay together afterward, she traced circles on my chest with her finger. "Michael," she said softly, "do you ever think about trying new things?" My heart stopped. Was she about to confess? Was she going to suggest we do the things she was doing with David? "What do you mean?" I asked carefully. "Oh, never mind," she said, suddenly pulling away. "It's silly." But it wasn't silly to me. It was another piece of the puzzle, another indication that she was living in 2 different worlds. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I had an appointment with the divorce lawyer at 10 a.m., and I wanted to get all the legal proceedings in motion before I confronted Rebecca. Ron Jenkins was a no-nonsense attorney who specialized in divorce cases. I laid out everything for him, the private investigator's report, the photos, the audio recordings, everything. "Mr. Sullivan," he said after reviewing the materials, "you have a very strong case for divorce on grounds of adultery. I just want this over with," I said. "I understand. Let me prepare the papers. We can have them served to your wife by the end of the week." After leaving the lawyer's office, I drove around Charlotte for hours, trying to work up the courage to go home and face Rebecca. I drove past the motel where she had met David, past the office where they worked together. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. Finally, I drove to the park again and sat on the same bench where I had cried the day before. I thought about our wedding day, about the promises we had made to each other. I thought about Emma and Connor and how this would affect them. It was time to go home and end this charade. When I arrived home, Rebecca's car was in the driveway. The children were at school, so we would be alone. This was it. This was the moment that would change everything. I sat in my car for a few minutes, gathering my strength. Then I walked into the house, carrying the private investigator's report. Rebecca was in the kitchen, preparing what looked like a special dinner. She turned when she heard me come in, and her face lit up with a smile. "Michael," You're home early. Is everything okay? We need to talk, I said, setting the report down on the kitchen counter. Her smile faded as she saw the serious expression on my face and the manila envelope I had placed between us. What's that? She asked, though I could see in her eyes that she already knew. Sit down, Rebecca, I said quietly. We need to talk. She remained standing for a moment, staring at the envelope. Slowly, she pulled out a chair and sat down across from me, her hands trembling slightly. I hired a private investigator, I said simply. I know about David. I know everything. The color drained from her face. Then the tears started, and with them came a flood of excuses, explanations, and pleas for forgiveness. I have photos, I said, opening the envelope. I have audio recordings. I have video. I know about the motel. I know about what you did in our guest bedroom. I know everything, Rebecca. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. Michael, please, she began, but I held up my hand to stop her. Don't make it worse by lying. I've seen enough lies. We sat in silence for several minutes, the only sound her quiet sobbing. What happens now? She asked in a voice barely above a whisper. I've filed for divorce, I said. You'll be served with papers tomorrow. The children. Connor will live with me. Emma will live with you. We'll work out a custody arrangement. Michael, please, can we talk about this? Can we try to work things out? I looked at her for a long moment. There's nothing to work out, I said finally. You made your choice. Now we all have to live with the consequences. I stood up from the table and walked toward the door. Where are you going? She called after me. I've rented an apartment, I said without turning around. I'll be back to get the children when they come home from school. I left the house and drove away. I proceeded to rent a small truck from the U-Haul company, then returned home to move my belongings. When I got back to the house, I started loading my personal belongings into the truck, clothes, a computer, and even my favorite chair. When I was about to leave for my new apartment, a neighbor came up to me as I was getting into the cab. Michael, are you moving? What happened? Is everything okay? She asked. Just some changes at home, Alice. Rebecca and I are separating, I replied curtly. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that. If there's anything I can do. Thanks, but we'll manage. I have to go, I said as I got into the truck. I knew that by the end of the day, most of the neighbors would hear about our separation. Alice was known as the neighborhood gossip. After unloading the truck at my apartment, I returned it and got into the car. Back at the apartment, I quickly put my things away, took a shower and changed into fresh clothes. After lunch, I went to our bank where I transferred half of the funds from our home account to my personal one. Then I spent a couple of hours dealing with insurance issues and other administrative tasks that required my attention. By 2:30 p.m., I drove up to Myers Park High School where my children studied and waited until they were dismissed. After a few minutes, they joined me and we went home together. Confused, they asked, Why are you taking us, Dad? What's going on? Emma asked. I'll explain now, honey, I replied, and drove the car into Freedom Park next to our neighborhood and parked. Emma was sitting in the front seat next to me and Connor was in the back, and both looked puzzled. Taking a deep breath, I turned to them and began. It's hard for me to say this, but I left your mother. You will stay with her while we resolve the custody issue. But I now have my own apartment and I will no longer live at home. Why, Dad? Emma started crying, tears streaming down her face. Why can't you be with us anymore? Connor whispered softly, turning away to hide his tears from us. I am very sorry, and although I cannot explain it, please know that we both love you and will always be by your side. You have to be strong for your mother and support her. But our marriage is beyond repair. We will remain your parents, but not as a couple, I said. Emma burst into open tears, and I instinctively reached out to hug her through the console. It hurt me to see my daughter crying. I couldn't understand why Rebecca would do this to us. It was painful to see how it affected our children. Eventually, a sense of normalcy returned to them, and I took them to the house that had once been our home. Before I left them there, I hugged them tightly. Tears were still flowing from their eyes and from mine. Go inside, do your homework, and try not to be distracted by anything, I told them. Your mom will be back soon, and she may not be in the best mood. Be there to support her. If you need anything, you can contact me by mobile phone. I left this situation and returned to my apartment. Glancing at my watch, I noticed that it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At that moment, Rebecca should have received the sad news. Later that day, around 5 o'clock in the evening, my phone rang. When I saw the relative's number on the caller ID, I hesitantly answered. Hello, Michael. My father-in-law Bob greeted me. Hi, Bob. Can I help you? I've always had a good relationship with Bob. Michael, Rebecca is in the hospital. In the hospital? Yes, she was brought home from work. She fainted after receiving the divorce papers. She asked me to call you. What's going on, Michael? Bob asked. She cheated on me and I have proof, I said. Oh no, are you sure? It's not like her, Bob replied. I have a private investigator's report, photos, videos. All the information is in the text and audio recordings. Oh no, this news will devastate her mother. How is Rebecca holding up? Bob asked. She's been through a lot, but I've learned something else. She's going to die. The words "she's dying" hit me like a ton of bricks before I asked for more details. What do you mean she's dying? She has pancreatic cancer and it is not treatable. They say she has only a few weeks to live, Bob said. Oh my God. I had no idea, Bob. She never told me about it. How long has she known about her condition? She is heavily sedated, but she managed to say that she has been ill for about 3 months. She's very upset. Can you come to the hospital? I think she wants to see you, Bob said. My thoughts were confused. Is Rebecca dying? What should I do? I have already informed the children that I am leaving her. Children? Oh no, they're home alone, I said. I'll come as soon as I can, but I need to check on the kids. They're home alone. Where are you? Bob asked. I'm in my apartment. Yes, I planned everything. Yes, I wanted to hurt her the same way she hurt me. I felt deep love and trust for this woman. There's no excuse for breaking the oath we took before God. I can understand that. I need to go to the house. Do you know how long they will keep her there? They plan to keep her overnight to keep an eye on her. Is it okay if I bring the kids later? It's probably better that they stay away for now. She's going home tomorrow and needs to be in the best condition to handle the situation. Will you be able to come here tonight? This situation is a complete disaster. I'm at a loss what to do next. I will stay with the children today and let her know that we will talk tomorrow. I'll make sure the kids go to school, and then I'll stop by her place. Okay, Michael, I'll pass on a message. We'll wait here until she falls asleep, Bob said. After I hung up, I got in the car and drove back to the house. While I was driving, my phone rang. It was Emma calling from her cell phone. Hi, Emma, I answered. Daddy, Mom's not home yet. Everything is fine, Emma said. I'm on my way home now, dear. I'll explain everything when I get there. It will only take a few minutes. Okay, bye. Please God, let everything be okay. What should I tell the children? The situation was chaotic. Why didn't she tell me about her terminal illness? Perhaps that was the reason for her betrayal. It must have started after she was diagnosed. No wonder she lost weight and felt tired all the time. When I arrived at the house, Emma rushed to meet me and Connor stood in the doorway and watched what was happening. Dad, where's Mom? Emma asked. She's in the hospital, honey. She fainted and they're doing some tests, I explained. Grandpa Bob called and informed us that Mom is stable now, so don't worry. We will see her tomorrow when she returns home, as she was kept overnight for observation. I took Emma's hand as we entered the house and put my hand on Connor's shoulder to comfort him, which he seemed to appreciate. I suggested going out to eat, and after enjoying dinner at Tony's Pizza on Park Road, we returned home. I called Bob to find out about Rebecca's condition, and he informed me that she was resting peacefully and they would be going home soon. I confirmed to him that I would come in the morning to bring her home as we had important things to discuss. He agreed with me. Before the children went to bed, Connor asked, "Dad, will you come home?" I paused before answering. "Looks like you're going to have to, son. You're going to school tomorrow and then I'll probably bring your mom home. We can have a family conversation tomorrow night." "Okay, that's great," Connor replied. Emma, who overheard, asked, "Do you still love Mom?" "Yes," I assured her. "I've always loved your mom, honey. I had to leave because something happened and I couldn't stay here anymore, but I might have to come back to help your mom a little," I explained. My answer made her smile and she confirmed my intention to return home. Hugging both of them, they retired to their rooms. Left alone, I poured myself a drink and sat in front of the TV staring at the blank screen. It was clear that I needed to go home. If she's really sick, she will not be able to cope with the house and children on her own. We will need to discuss the accommodation conditions before the children return home tomorrow. I could only assume that her affair had something to do with the news of her shortened life expectancy. Maybe I'll finally find out the reason for all this. There were many tasks to be solved, for example, to stop the divorce process. It would seem pointless to continue the divorce when she is facing an incurable disease. Besides, I would have to give up my apartment. Why didn't she tell me about her condition? If she had told me, maybe we would have found a way to overcome this together. Thinking about the 15 years of our life together and the possibility of losing her filled me with overwhelming sadness. Either because of the alcohol or because of the seriousness of the situation, I was overwhelmed by a wave of grief. The day was filled with stress, and this sudden realization turned out to be too strong, causing tears to flow down my face. Seeking revenge, I acted without communication and confrontation. Now I needed to take the time to figure out why. If she really only had a few weeks to live, we had no choice but to face it together. Although my wife's act ruined our wedding vows, I couldn't bring myself to kick her out. Despite this betrayal, I still felt a sense of duty as a person and a parent. I woke up early the next morning to get the kids ready for school. Emma was looking forward to meeting her mom after school. "Dad, did you hear anything about Mom this morning?" she asked. "I didn't have a chance to call her, dear. I'm sure if there were any problems they would have informed us." I reassured her. "Do you have everything you need for school?" "Yes, everything is in my backpack," Emma replied. "Okay then," I said, trying to make the children feel normal despite the turmoil in our marriage. "Let's start moving out. The bus will arrive in a few minutes. Are you ready, Connor?" "Yes, everything is ready," Connor replied. "Okay, I'll see you later. Have a nice day," I said. When they left, I stood on the porch and watched the bus pull up and then return to the house. Before picking up Rebecca, I needed to return my things home, so I contacted the truck rental office to book that very truck. I was assured that it would be ready for my arrival. Then I called Carolina's medical center and asked where Rebecca's room was. She was having breakfast when I called, but as soon as she heard my voice, tears started streaming down her face. "Oh, Michael, I'm so sorry. Can we talk?" she asked. "What is it?" I asked. "I'll pick you up around noon, Rebecca. I have some business to settle first, but as soon as we get home we can talk." I reassured her. "Are you sure they'll let you go?" I asked. "Oh yeah, the doctor came and said I could go home this morning. It just hurts," she replied. "Leave it until we get home, Rebecca. I'll see you soon," I said softly. "Okay," she whispered back in a thin, whiny voice. After getting dressed for work, I went to U-Haul to pick up the truck. Took only about 2 hours to transport my things home. After that, I took a shower, changed my clothes, and returned the truck to the U-Haul. Then I picked up the car and drove to Carolina's medical center where Rebecca was waiting for me. She was dressed and sitting in a wheelchair in the hall with her parents nearby. When I saw her, I was amazed at how much she had aged since I last saw her yesterday morning. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and her complexion was almost gray-yellow. Despite her suffering, I resisted the urge to pick her up. "Are you ready to go?" I asked, trying to speak softly. "Yes, I was released quite recently. I've been waiting for you," she sobbed. "Then let's go," I said, not wanting her to make a scene in the hospital lobby. "Let's go home." Bob interjected, "She's our daughter, but she's also your wife. If your marriage is over, we would like her to come back to us." "I understand what you're getting at, Bob, and I recognize my responsibilities as a husband, even if your daughter violated our marriage vows. We can discuss this further when we get home, and I'll keep you posted." "Okay, Michael, please go get your car. I'll pick it up when you get back." "Thank you," I said quickly and hurried after the car. On the way home, Rebecca started talking. "Michael, I'm really sorry. I can't tell you how sorry I am." "Rebecca, why don't you wait until we get home? We can talk before the children come," I suggested. "Michael, are you going to kick me out?" she asked. "No, if you're really as sick as your father claims, we'll stick together. I know this situation is going to be difficult for Connor and Emma. I have already informed them that we are breaking up, but I did not disclose the reason. I rented an apartment and moved out yesterday, but returned home this morning. The main question I have for you is why? Why did you do what you did? And why did you treat David like you never treated me? I think I deserve an explanation, and I expect you to give it when we get home. I hired a private investigator, and now I have a detailed report with photos, videos, and audio recordings of your meeting with David in our guest room. Any denial on your part will be useless." Rebecca continued to sob silently in the passenger seat as we drove home. "Okay, Michael, I'll explain everything," she finally said. We drove in silence, ignoring her tears, until we arrived at our house. I took her inside and helped her up to our bedroom where she asked to freshen up before our conversation. While she was busy, I made soup and sandwiches for our lunch. After lunch, we sat down at the kitchen table opposite each other and I looked at her. "Say it, Rebecca. I want to hear it now before the kids come home." "Okay, I don't know if you remember or not, but about 3 months ago I started having stomach pains which I mistook for indigestion or heartburn. After a couple of weeks, when the pain did not stop and I could not ease them off with antacids, I turned to our family doctor and he sent me for tests and a CT scan. I did all this without telling you because I didn't want to worry you and the children. Once again, my flexible work schedule allowed me to leave the office at odd hours, which turned out to be a blessing. After receiving several alarming results, my doctor immediately referred me to a specialist. After additional tests, the oncologist told me the terrible news. I have pancreatic cancer and treatment options are limited due to the late detection of the disease. The prognosis was gloomy and I had only a few weeks left to live. I was planning to share this heartbreaking news with you, Connor and Emma, this Saturday. The realization that I was leaving my loved ones hit me hard and I didn't know how to break the news to you and the children. I couldn't stop thinking about how young I was and didn't have time to really experience life. In those moments when you weren't around, I found myself visiting sites with prohibited materials on my computer and doing things that turned me on. I longed to explore these desires, but I did not dare to share them with you for fear of losing your respect. I desperately wanted you to remember me as pure and innocent and not as a person with dark desires. I found myself in a difficult situation. My reasoning was confused by the realization that time was slipping away. I longed to fulfill my fantasies before it was too late. I should have discussed this with you, but I hesitated because I didn't want to look like just a naughty woman in your eyes. I knew David was interested in such things because I overheard him talking to colleagues in the office. In the end, I plucked up the courage and asked him about it, and he admitted that he had a collection of videos of the category for adults. One day we went to his house and watched several of them together. The video turned me on so much that in the end we entered into an intimate relationship, but it did not meet my expectations and did not bring the satisfaction that I usually feel with you. I kept hoping that everything would get better and even allowed us to have intimate relations in our guest room several times. As you know, I made sure that he never ended up in our bed. But the last time we had intimacy in the guest room, I tried to recreate the passion depicted in the video, but I couldn't really enjoy it. It became clear to me that the situation would not change for the better, and I decided to break off my relationship with him. I admit that my actions were selfish and I didn't think about how it would affect you and our children. I have no excuse for my actions except that after learning about my terminal diagnosis and that I didn't have long to live, I was overwhelmed with fear and selfishness. Now I deeply regret my behavior and humbly ask for the opportunity to return home and spend the rest of my time with my family. I realize that I may never be able to fully redeem myself and I don't expect forgiveness. I hope that in time you will find the strength in your heart to forgive me. I understand that my actions have tarnished the respect you once had for me and I sincerely regret it. I hope that by starting to write a novel I would be able to realize my fantasies, keeping them secret, knowing that if you find out you will take the actions that you have taken now. I am ready to accept any punishment that you deem necessary because I need to cleanse my soul of the sins that I have committed. You are the one I love and respect more than anyone in the world, and I am seeking your forgiveness for absolution. When she finished speaking, I sat in silence for a few moments, looking at her. She lowered her head and stared at the table, waiting for my answer. After listening to her confession, I carefully considered my answer. Rebecca, I must admit that I am deeply hurt by your actions. It pains me to realize that you didn't come to me first and decided to cut us out of your life. Although I understand the shock of realizing that you have very little time left, I cannot understand why you felt it necessary to distance yourself from me. I would support you in everything regardless of whether I agree with your choice. My love for you knows no bounds and I will be by your side in everything. After becoming your husband, we tied the knot and love became the bond that connected us into one whole. Now I understand that I should have supported you in fulfilling your desires. It's almost comical to think that I was holding back my desires for fear of being rejected and losing your respect. It turns out that we had the same desires, but the lack of communication led us astray. It's all in the past now, and I want you to stay with us as long as possible. It's hard for me to forgive you for the terrible mistake you made, but now I understand better why you did it. Perhaps this understanding will help me come to terms with what happened. It might be better for you to sleep in the guest room for a while until everything settles down. I may have to hire someone to help with the housework, washing, cooking, and cleaning. In the future, we may have to convert the dining room into a bedroom if you can no longer climb the stairs, but we can discuss this later. Thanks, Michael, Rebecca said softly. I informed them that after they return from school, we will have a family meeting where we will discuss everything. Her expression turned grim again when she thought about her children. It's necessary, I suppose. They're already at the age where they need to know, but it's not going to be easy, especially for Emma, she admitted, holding my hand tightly. I didn't let her go. The conversation with the children took place shortly after they returned home from school. Emma showed her delight at her mother's return and Connor was more restrained but seemed glad to see her again. They both asked if we were still offended by each other and if we had reconciled forever. We assured them that Mom had returned home for permanent residence, but there were still problems in a relationship that needed to be resolved. Mom will be staying in the guest room for a while. I promised them that we would solve our problem soon, and they seemed satisfied with that. I had to have an uncomfortable family discussion which was necessary to move forward. We still have some changes to make, I told them. Your mom won't be coming back to work anymore. She will stay at home and we will all have to support her as much as possible. We'll hire someone to help while I'm at work and you're at school, so she won't be left alone. Emma, confused at first, spoke first. Are you feeling unwell, Mom? Rebecca, who was sitting next to Emma, put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. Yes, honey. And it's only going to get worse. Emma's eyes widened as she took in the news her mother had just shared. What's wrong, Mom? It's cancer, baby. And there's no cure for it, Rebecca replied. Aren't you going to get better? Understanding appeared on Emma's face, and I heard Connor curse softly under his breath. Tears glistened in Emma's eyes and began to flow down her cheeks. Are you going to die, Mom? Yes, baby, I'm going to, Rebecca replied. We will all face death someday, and my time will come sooner than expected. God is calling me home to be with him. Emma turned, buried her face in Rebecca's shoulder and wrapped her arms around her, bursting into tears. I don't want you to leave. You can't leave. I won't allow it. Rebecca hugged Emma tightly and I turned to Connor. Tears streamed down his face as I held him close. What happened to her? He managed to say. Cancer. Stage 4 cancer, I replied quietly. The doctors can't do anything. For the next hour, we all cried and prayed together, but eventually came to a reluctant agreement. Emma, in denial, refused to believe that her mother's time was limited. I knew she would need the strong support of another woman in the family when Rebecca was no longer with us. Trying to give our family at least some sense of normalcy, I decided to order pizza delivery from Papa John's. Emma clung to her mother, tears streaming down her face, and Rebecca tried to comfort her while we waited for the pizza to arrive. I was struck by Rebecca's strength in the face of such sadness and the confidence that she would always be there for her children. Tears welled up in my eyes too. After a few days, we began to come to terms with the situation. We reached out to our parents, brothers and sisters who came together to support us during this difficult time. Rebecca's mom, Dorothy, moved in with us and quickly took over all the housework. We set up the spare bedroom for Dorothy, and I realized that keeping Rebecca in the guest room was just petty revenge on a woman who was already suffering. Dorothy's first night with us was filled with tears and emotions and culminated in a touching moment of reconciliation when Rebecca came to our bedroom, expressing her love for me and asking for forgiveness. I couldn't resist anymore and held her close. We didn't exchange many words that evening. Instead, she just snuggled up to me and fell asleep. Over the following weeks, Rebecca continued to struggle with her illness, but eventually her condition deteriorated severely. The night before she died, she hugged me and whispered, I've always wanted to leave before you. I was puzzled by her words. She continued, You can go on living without me, but I can't imagine life without you. Find yourself another wife after I leave. Emma needs a woman she can trust and guide her, and you'll need a companion too. The next morning, she slipped away from us peacefully. I was by her side and squeezed her hand when she left this world. Despite knowing about the inevitability of her death, the pain of loss persisted for a long time. Fortunately, Dorothy stayed with us for some time after the funeral, providing much-needed support. In the end, she had to return home to take care of Bob. To ease the burden, I decided to hire a housekeeper to handle the evening meal and cleaning. My children and I learned how to do laundry, and now we could do it on our own. I haven't started dating yet. I'm not sure when I'll start, and I'm still wondering if it's worth disturbing David's happy home. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.